Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Hey, welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and our final after show for the Mandalorian Season 3. 8 episodes down the road, we're at Chapter 24 in the series, and this episode is called The Return. And this week we got a few party members joining the Escape Pod, so we'll introduce everyone very shortly. And just a quick reminder that if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, you can find us there as well with the handle at SW Escape Podcast. That way when you're at the office and you want to watch something interesting, there you go. All right, let's get into Star Wars.
Another happy landing.
Chut, Blake. You there, sir?
Oh, sorry, I forgot I had the double mute button.
It happens.
There's a real one.
It happens. You know, probably some, I don't know, separatist interception or something like that.
Must be what it is. Yeah, it must have released some sort of hacking virus.
Yeah.
My escape pod mic.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm pretty sure we got an incoming transmission.
Star Wars escape pod has just been intercepted by the Separatist Alliance. If you are tuning
dude, you
in
called
right
it.
now, don't go anywhere. Leave a review and make it a good one.
Oh, well, at least it was a positive message.
Yeah, this is true.
All right, we got Kirk. Welcome back on, sir. It's been a week. Another week, another episode.
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, Blake chose the Obi-Wan one, which I wanted to use, so
I knew it had to be first. Someone else is gonna steal it.
No.
Wait, you mean the soundboard? Did you use the soundboard?
Yeah, could you not hear it?
I don't know. Maybe my system's all glitching out. Try it again. It's definitely not working this week. That's okay. Next week we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Right, it's just silence, and then we introduce ourselves.
All right, here we go. Nick, it's been a little bit since we had you on last. I can't even remember which episode it was. So welcome back.
It has been a while. I don't think I've been on any of the Mandalorian ones actually. I think it's been Andor. Andor was the last time.
Oh dang, yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, here we are then. You squeaking in at the last minute, and with you is a friend of yours, Shawna. Hello, Shawna.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. Great to have another fresh perspective on Star Wars. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say about the season and the finale. And like this is the end of the road for now. I mean, that's the feeling that I got when I finished watching this episode. But just like kind of initial impressions, like what did anyone think? Maybe Blake, we can maybe start with you if you got like a little blurb you wanna spit out for the feeling
for this
you
episode.
Got. Yeah, just the feeling you got when you finished watching it. Kind of what'd you think?
I kind of had mixed feelings about it. I thought the action was super cool, and I think the direction was going in. We can kind of see from the last like 2 episodes or so, kind of where it was headed. But I really had a hard time with Gideon's villain in this, just because it to me it got really fan fiction-y. Like, I'm gonna combine the Jedi and the Mandalorians, and all this. Just like this, is, and like he's like cloning, he's trying to clone Force users, and like this is the plot of the Lego Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from, and I have something to say about this myself, but I'll save it until I hear from all of you guys. Kirk, what did you what were your initial thoughts on this?
I have to say, when I was watching the episode live, at least, I definitely was going into the episode with a few rumors, thinking that some bad things were going to happen to our favorite characters. It's like some very bad things. So I was sweating the whole time.
Yeah,
and I was like really nervous. Like, I don't want this to be the end. I'm sure for the merchandise reasons they're not going to get rid of anybody. Which I won't spoil anything yet if you haven't watched the episode, obviously. But yeah, I thought it was a good ending. I thought it was a very safe ending though. And because there was any lack of there's not too many misdirection. Although yeah, Moff Gideon's weirdly obsessed with himself, which I totally didn't expect. But hey, suits the man, I guess.
Yeah, and thank you for the reminder. Spoilers for anybody who has not seen the Mandalorian finale episode. Make sure you watch it before carrying on with this after show. But yeah, I remember getting messages from you, the night that or the day that it was coming out. You're pretty worried that we'd have a few main character deaths going on, and protagonist.
Yeah, I read that people didn't want to acting it anymore unless they could take off their helmet and stuff, which means they weren't going to be included in following seasons. So I was just worried. But this season finale compared to the previous two, definitely felt like they wrapped things up. And I guess that's one little thing I appreciated about this one, is that there wasn't a hint for 15,000 new spin-offs that were going to happen. So yeah, it's both a good and a bad thing, I guess.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I have to say that's kind of funny though, thinking the idea that these actresses, they want to show their face, so Disney's like, "Meh, just kill them all."
Yeah. Nick, what were your thoughts on this one?
I liked it. It was probably one of the better episodes. I was a little concerned because the runtime wasn't very long. It was maybe 35 minutes or so, but I get why, because it's watching the episode, pretty much the whole episode is this big final battle between the Mandalorians and the Empire and their little base there. Yeah. And it was very captivating the entire time. And it was just a very well put together finale with a lot of very cool sort of fighting interactions with the jetpacks and all that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I have to admit, that part was super cool and reminded me a lot of the finale of Clone Wars.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's what ran through my head too, just seeing the jetpack wars kind of thing, Shawna,
it was sweet. It was like a live action version.
Yeah, I was pleased to see that. And, I think another huge advantage is that they probably didn't have an incredible amount of use of the volume. A lot of those pulled out shots are all very, very much 100% animated with all those people flying around all over the place. And I think it just kind of looks better, when you have that kind of very cinematic view that we're kind of used to seeing. I mean, you go back and watch a lot of those superhero movies with people flying around. It just kind of pays off a little better. You don't get that old Christopher Reeve Superman kind of vibe that you do on
people on cables.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it looked great.
The Peter Pan look. Yeah.
The Peter Pan look. Shawna, what were your thoughts on this one?
So when I first watched the episode, it was I felt like something was missing and I didn't know why. So I had to watch through it a second time. And then I felt a little better after watching it through the second time. It felt I was so happy to see Din and Grogu just settled in this outskirt little home for themselves, which is they haven't had for season, all through pretty much every season. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of just nice for them to have a little bit of time down, and then can go and have more adventures in the next season by the look of it.
Yeah, it kind of felt very complete in the sense that wrapping this episode up, it almost felt like a series finale than anything else. But
that's what I felt.
Yeah.
This is the end of the whole series. They left the door open for cameos and stuff. He's working with the New Republic, but to me it felt like they're saying there's not going to be season 4.
I think it makes sense. Celebration just happened, and season 4 was not verbally confirmed by anybody. I think it was Jon Favreau or Dave that just recently went on record with some interview site and saying something along the lines of how we don't know when Mandalorian could end. And I guess that's just their way of saying, like, we can keep going with this show. But, like, in the immediate agenda of, like, what's going to happen, I don't think season 4 is really quite on the roster just yet. Which...
Would you say if they went back, like if they continue with season 4, the way they ended, they would kind of go back to almost what we were in like season 1, early season 2, where it's like smaller stakes?
I hope so, and it also gives me hope for the canceled series Rangers of the New Republic. I feel like maybe the story with that show...
it's just gonna be Mando.
Yeah,
as the Ranger.
Yeah, I think so. Character. I think the idea of that show kind of changed, right? And you know, it happens. It happens in the pre-production phase, you know, with script writing and whatever else, but yeah, I think like maybe the idea, the concept of like having a show that takes place with these people kind of discovering remnants of the Empire and the Outer Rim still surviving and stuff, like they probably kind of adjusted or shifted the perspective a little bit, I think, when they shelved that show and they thought maybe during season 3 we could set it up so that he could be a primary character protagonist in that series if we ever revisited that show again. So to me, it almost feels like season 3 ended off in a way that show would now make sense to do because just the way it ended, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, like, to me, it ended. This felt like it would have been like on the guy's name, like a famous cowboy movie, and like that's like the finale. Like, okay, the adventures are done. Like, you know, sitting on your front porch, got your feet up. Watching the sunset,
right? Yeah,
watching that kid eat some frogs.
yeah. The way that they did the George Lucas kind of circle around Grogu, you know, kind of practicing the Force at the very end.
Yeah, it's very. It was like the end of a Clint Eastwood movie in my head.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe that's what they were going for too. Just kind of home on the range, right? So
yeah, so my thoughts on this as well. They ended it like it seemed to be that they were pushing the notion that it was fully the end of that show, right? Yeah. And I think, and I don't think they'd ever go back. Oh, season 4 now he's doing some jobs for the New Republic. I don't think they do that. I think they'd start a new show with a new story and go from there, and not just have another season just because it's been popular, like the right. I think it's done. I think it's done. I mean, he might come back in like another show or something, but I don't know. I mean, also with Grogu, it's tough. Like, he's still a baby, and the timeline doesn't quite make sense for him to really grow up in this like post Empire timeline. So I think
the next 2 centuries.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that character might have to be shelved for a bit, and we'll focus on like the Ahsoka show and Thrawn and all that.
Right.
Do you think Grogu's he's gonna show up and be able to speak in the new Rey movie? He'll like just learn to talk.
I don't think I want to see that. That's gonna be weird.
His first words will be Rey.
What? I wonder what that would sound like.
These are your first steps.
Oh man, yeah.
But then you also wonder, like, where was he during all those other movies?
yeah,
that's explain that, right?
That's a great point to bring up because, you know, I highly doubt. I mean, I know I'm kind of honestly a little surprised, Kirk, that you had feelings that they were going to kill off either of these two characters because of just how much money it's making Disney. I think, I don't know, it'd be a little weird if they did.
I knew they weren't going to kill off Grogu. There was like no chance they were going to do that. That would have just been like insane. But I had a really high feeling they were going to kill off Mando, especially like after the episode of episode 7.
Yeah.
I thought that, and given that there's been some issues with like voiceover acting, and I think this is the first season that Mando didn't take off his helmet compared to the 3. Because in the first season we had in season 1 we at the end IG-88 took off his helmet, and then obviously Luke, and then at the Imperial base in the second season, and then this third season he didn't. So that's what I expected. But I'm glad it didn't happen.
Yeah, no,
despite the scoop at the end.
Yeah. However that result came about, yeah, I share the feeling. But yeah, it's a great point to bring up there, Shawna, because we do have these movies that take place kind of down the road, 20 something years later, and it does kind of beg the question, like where are they if they're not in the events of those movies? Like, what's up with those characters? Where are they at? And I guess maybe is what Dave would say, it's a story for another time. They're like, it's a story for another time, But yeah, it's like, I guess it's one of those things. We'll just have to wait and find out. Maybe they'll show up in that new movie, and I don't know. Who knows, right? Maybe we'll get
by that time, Din is too old. Wouldn't he be in like in his 70s or something? By the time Bray and everything is around, so he'd be like a pretty bad Mandalorian at that stage. Like he's got arthritis and all that good stuff.
Hey,
I don't know.
I kind of like the idea. I kind of like the idea of like this Wolverine style, like burned out Logan style kind of movie with Din Djarin as this like kind of crusty old bounty hunter who has like this baby child still.
But like he doesn't have adamantine, or what you want to call it, into his bones. So he's just gonna be like an old Mandalorian on a pension. Like he's not gonna be that strong.
Well, yeah. I was gonna say it didn't slow down Captain Rex when he showed up in Return of the Jedi.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Here, let me read the description here, and then we can kind of there's a few notes I'm sure maybe a few of us have to get into. So. All right, Bo-Katan and her reconnaissance squad retreat from Moff Gideon's base. Upon returning to the Mandalorian flagship, Axe Woves send the remaining Mandalorians to reinforce the planetary troops while he defends the ship from Imperial TIE fighter squadrons. With assistance from Grogu, Din Djarin escapes from captivity and seeks out Gideon. Din Djarin and Grogu find the cloning tanks filled with the clones of Gideon who can possibly use the Force. Din Djarin destroys them all. After a lengthy skirmish between the Mandalorians and the Beskar-enhanced stormtroopers within the base, Bo-Katan, Din Djarin, and Grogu make a final stand against Moff Gideon and his Praetorian guards, a battle in which the Darksaber is destroyed. Axe Woves rams the Mandalorian capital ship into the Imperial base, and Gideon is consumed by the resulting blast. Grogu protects Bo-Katan and Din Djarin from the blast with a Force bubble, and after the battle, the Mandalorians restart the Great Forge at the heart of Mandalore, and Din Djarin formally adopts Grogu as his own son. Afterwards, Din Djarin takes up the honest contract work with Carson Teva in the New Republic and moves into a cabin on the outskirts of Navarro's capital as previously offered to him by Greef Karga, while IG-11 is rebuilt by the Anzellan mechanics to serve as Navarro's new marshal. Well, right off the bat there, at least we finally know where they were going with that whole IG thing. I know we were kind of talking about it last week, going like, well, if this is what all the hype was about, trying to find a new head for the guy. I mean, like, IG-12 wasn't really working out. I don't think, like, all of us kind of unanimously agreed, all right, it's kind of cute and whatever, but I really don't hope that kind of goes on very long. So I'm glad that they kind of just made it like a 2-episode thing, and that was it, right? I don't know if anyone wants to pipe up about that, but...
Actually, I've got one short thought on that. Just with Grogu, like I think because he's slowly like growing up a little bit, right? Because like in the first seasons, he was always in that little floating bassinet, right? He's always protected, just going around behind Mando, and then they gave him this IG-12 thing, so he had a little bit more independence. He was kind of in this thing; he could kind of go where he wanted to. And then at the end, when he was fighting those guards, he jumped out, and he was like hopping around and all that. But he wasn't put back in anything else now, because like when he and Mando walked in, like to the where the other Mandalorians were, Grogu was just like hopping along, like kind of skittling along beside him, and he was walking, right?
Yeah.
So it's like he's basically now he's gone from crawling to walking, kind of, like
he moves like the end. Gremlin. If you've ever watched.
Yeah, his feet were really weird. He was like kind of floating up, just kind of on his tippy toes a little bit.
I gotta say, when he walks, it is the funniest thing because you just know it's the puppet. It's the puppeteers, right? Like I saw a little GIF from Salty Animators that said like, like when people brag it's practical effects, we can tell.
Well, even when he's jumping around like on the light fixtures, it's just like, oh, they're just throwing the puppet. Like, basically,
silly.
Yeah.
between each other. Right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like that's one of the things I wasn't sure how to feel about because it's like this serious moment. He could die, and I'm like, this just looks so silly.
Yeah, well, it's funny because that really reminds me of the conversation that John Knowles got on record, but in behind the scenes footage for Attack of the Clones when they were trying to choreograph the fight with Dooku on Geonosis with Yoda, and he said because they'd never done anything like this before, and they were using a CG Yoda for the first time because in the previous movie they did use the puppet. And later replaced it with CG because, let's be honest, the puppet just didn't work out. And,
I like Crackhead Yoda. You leave him alone.
Crackhead Yoda. That's a good name for him. I've kind of digested what he's said over the years as like a good way to look at anything when it comes to a puppet is if it's not done right, it's just going to look funny.
Our double was doing all the sword fighting just against nothing for where he's fighting Yoda. That'll be challenging. I mean, and it has to be handled well because it does have the potential of being unintentionally funny if it's not done right. We have this tiny little 2.5 foot tall frog creature who's running around with these lightsabers fighting somebody who's over 6 feet tall. If not handled just right, it's going to look silly.
Well, I think he's just so small that you never really see his legs ever, right? So he's just in that kind of robe always, and it would be he's almost like a ball, right? It would be hard to make that look good in any way, I think. Right.
Well, he's got little they're baby legs, right?
Yeah.
What, like 8 inches long? So There's not it is hard to puppeteer him in a way that other than making him like from the first season kind of like waddle really roughly like a infant. I think it'll always look unnatural unless you're doing that. I mean, you never see Yoda run. He does his crazy jump stuff, but other than that, he just kind of walks at a slower pace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or he's floating in a chair too. So.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It's interesting how they've approached the growing up of Grogu, like what you're saying, Nick, because there's got to be a progression, I guess, in the show for that character, but at the same time, he doesn't quite age the same way that everybody else does. So it is a challenge, to try and find ways to allow that character to grow, but not necessarily have him age up the way that he shouldn't, right? So it's as the seasons go on, if we get more, I'm sure we will. I hope that season 4 has a time jump. I'm kind of rooting for the fact that maybe season 4 isn't quite back to back with season 3 the way that the previous seasons have been. And there have been kind of the whole 3-season show takes place over a period of a couple of years, but I hope that season 4 is kind of like further away, like 5 years away as opposed to like 1 or 6 months or whatever. But yeah. So there was the clone plot. This episode was a lot of battling, but as far as story stuff goes, I wouldn't mind bringing up the clone plot because this is the peeve I was kind of talking about earlier, Blake, is I just, as from the Bad Batch, from there's been a previous time that I've brought this up in. I hate it when the villain just reveals their evil plan at the very end. It's just so cheesy. It just sucks.
Right. It's like a Bond movie.
It's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you telling us this? Like, we either already know this, and if we didn't know this, it just seemed kind of like really rushed. It's like, yeah, Bond movie kind of totally, right? Like you just kind of like
I'm just picturing if this is real life, it'd be like Putin or like Xi Jinping or whoever, right? Just like announcing their evil plan like before it's complete. It's like,
right.
Why would you do that?
Yeah. I just got the feeling that this was kind of a little weird, right? But then I think what made it weird was that that this was the capstone, that he reveals his evil plan and then he dies, right? Like it's not so much of an issue when the plan is revealed at an earlier point and then it still has room to grow, but at the very last kind of 20 minutes of like the show, and the evil plan just kind of like bears its head sort of thing, and we all realize like all these theories that have been built up for seasons worth of time. I mean, like we've had the Snoke theories, like maybe that's Snoke in the tank, maybe it's Palpatine's clones. Like I remember last week I was trying to connect the dots to all this other stuff, and I had a really good working theory, mind you, because Mount Tantus, Thrawn, all the stuff that's Captain Palin returned in the last episode, from live action from the Thrawn novels, and there was all this stuff I was going on a tangent about last week, and I thought it was all so cool. And now we find out that it's an isolated plot where all these clones are actually him, and it's all kind of his thing, and then it all just collapses at the very end. It doesn't work out. And I thought,
that doesn't tie into Bad Batch though, so there's still some sort of actual cloning plot going on.
There is, but that's what I mean. It's like an isolated thing. Like all these clones were his own thing, and it still doesn't make sense to me that he kind of calls Brendel Hux's obsession with cloning out on him. He's like, "Oh, well, you're the one with cloning obsession," when in actual fact is both of them. Yeah, in actual fact is both of them. He's just kind of like hiding the fact that he's doing all this. I don't think any of the other Imperial warlords even know about his evil plan. I think like that's just kind of his own agenda. And
I think that's the case, is that they're unaware of it.
To me, it just felt a little like small scale. You know what I mean? It just felt a little weird.
I do agree. I feel like the little drops of hints of what's going on throughout like season 2 with the cloning stuff, that felt like it had a lot more potential. I'm hoping that this wasn't the coming of all of that information together is leading to this point, because it is pretty lackluster, especially what we know is out there for the bigger potential of the cloning stuff that already is canon as well.
Yeah.
So it was a really weird decision to me all around. It's like, I liked Gideon in season 1 and 2. I guess mainly season 2 didn't really. Then it felt like they just made him into this bizarre supervillain.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't buy it. It felt too Marvel-y, I guess.
Kirk, what did you think about this evil plot reveal on Gideon's part?
Well, I guess the thing that I saw people getting really stirred up about was how Gideon went. He told everyone his plan, but more importantly, he said, "You destroyed my clones before they even had the chance to breathe," or something. But I guess what didn't make sense with that was that Gideon was watching them. Like he was like playing Call of Duty, and he knew where everyone was on the mini map. Like he knew where they're all going, and he kind of just let them walk through and destroy the clones and click a few buttons. Like he didn't even have a password or anything on them, and just they just destroyed the clones. So like he had the opportunity to stop that from happening.
That's true.
So it seemed too easy.
So my thinking is that when he said that line that you destroyed my clones before they even had the chance to breathe, I feel like that's more of a reference to like all of Mando's efforts throughout the show, like from the previous like stealing Grogu from the beginning to capturing again and not enabling Pershing from taking out as much midichlorians from him, I guess. So I feel like that could have been what was implied with that, as in like it wasn't just him destroying the clones at that final moment, because he could have just made more, I guess. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if he did mean that, he was angry because he destroyed the clones just then. Well, he did. He just let that happen. Like he just let them walk through there, and he could have done something about it, I guess.
It's true. He knew it was there. Did nothing about it.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but then again, there's also these theories going around that Moff Gideon didn't have his mustache this time, so therefore that was actually a clone of Moff Gideon talking.
Yeah, I heard that.
I don't really know, but I highly doubt that's the case. There's no chance being like they're going to reveal in like a later season. You thought that was me, but I didn't have my mustache, therefore.
Right. No,
I was a clone then. I'm not a clone now. So. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I do definitely agree with you guys that he was a weaker villain this time compared to the previous, especially his final plot of trying to protect and get rid of the Mandalorian with the Death Troopers back in season 2 was so much stronger compared to this one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm not too fussed about it not being for a wider plot, because I do consider Moff Gideon to think himself as detached from the Empire, and he's got a bit of an egotistical complex. So he wanted to, I genuinely do believe he wanted to create an army for himself just to stoke his own ego and rule the Empire, considering the Empire failed under the previous leadership.
Yep.
But yeah, then again, I still completely agree with the fact that this was a bit of a weirder send-off and a bit more of a weaker send-off, especially when he had the minimap cheat codes.
Do you think, I'm wondering now, because he had the minimap code, maybe this is like a red herring? Because Mando kind of was figuring out a bit of the cloning stuff, as we were talking about in the previous episodes. So maybe it was to throw him off the trail, thinking this was the end point, but maybe it actually is Snoke. I don't know, spitballing here.
I have no idea. I mean, all I could say is I hope they just don't bring it back. Like, he was a good villain and all. They've just kind of burned him out. You know what I mean? Like, it's just his welcome aspect has run its course. I don't know. Maybe Nick or Shawna, maybe you could what are your thoughts on this? Like, you know, you think he's good? You like that he's gone? You like that he could return? Did you think it was a weak send off? Like, what are you guys' thoughts?
I don't know. Like I'm a little bit torn. Like I kind of agree with you guys, but at the same time, like I'm wondering if he was indeed, like I saw like similar things that Kirk saw, like about like the mustache thing, and if it indeed is just a way for Gideon to get Mando off of his trail so that he can run all of his things under, like behind everyone's back, and like then you don't see it coming. So I don't know if that's part of it. But then also too, like with that other guy, if he is a clone, I don't know if you guys have dealt with like kids enough, but like just for him to spew his entire like idea is just kind of like a young mind thought process. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. Well, I deal with a lot of kids, so that's why I was like, they tell you everything. So I just like, so maybe this kid being like this young clone kind of would be new. He just thinking, oh, you know, you've ruined everything, without knowing the full extent of what Gideon's plans are.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, Nick, you got anything on this as well?
I don't know. I'm sort of under the impression that it was the real Gideon, and then they were just kind of capping off his arc there.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, oh, in the future, like, oh, Thrawn's coming back, right? But you can't really have two bad guys in a show, so I think they just had Moff Gideon for the Mandalorian, sort of as they're like, oh, we're gonna make the show and we need a bad guy. Let's make one.
Right.
And then that was Moff Gideon, and now his arc's kind of come to a close, and then they're gonna be focusing more on Thrawn coming back, and I think he's gonna be like the new bad guy, because I don't think you can really have two. That doesn't work in a show.
Well,
so
you can, but you'd have to be like, as we know currently, the tiering, like Thrawn's on top from that meeting. So it could be that Gideon would underhandedly try to overthrow Thrawn, but then they could use as an example of Thrawn, like as his character as just being really, really intelligent and self-aware that's happening, and then stop that, and then they would off Gideon that way.
Yeah. Let's say if Gideon does come back, I have to say, I don't want him to come back. We've had 3 seasons of him now. He was a good villain. It's time to move on to the next one, I feel.
I'm in that boat too, yeah.
Even though, like, I completely, like, think that it's very well possible that he could be a clone, and I love that idea of, like, his young mind, like, not being completely sound and spilling out his plan. But even if he did come back, I love the actor and everything. I just think it's time to move on.
Yeah. I was going on about that last week when, we were talking about these clones being of him and everything like that. Just kind of the idea that it was. I think it would be a mistake to kind of just have him linger. But yeah, I don't know. Again, like, I think that when it comes down to things like the mustache theory, that's what I'm going to call it, at least. That it's probably something along the lines of the actor was probably filming another show at the time, and contractually needed to remove his mustache, and we run into a Henry Cavill complex where, they didn't want to CG some hair back onto his face, or vice versa for the Superman idea, and they would look all stupid and weird and everything like that. So I kind of like the idea. Let's just kind of like leave it unsaid. let's just say he got himself a shave for his new suit of armor, and he kind of dropped it at that, right?
It's like season 4. Somehow Gideon has returned.
Yeah.
What'd be funny is if all the clones just had mustaches, so he was the unmustached one.
Yeah, well, that's probably a thing, right? Like they probably needed him to shave for like, how weird would it look to see a clone in a tank with a mustache, right?
Well, at the same time, like
they can't
hair,
shave.
so how do they? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like, how does the clone shave while it's in the tank?
Maybe he can't grow a beard. Like maybe the actor himself really only can grow a mustache, and then they thought, well, it just looks.
Can you just imagine? Can you just imagine in season 4, like he returns and everyone freaks out, and Mando's like, "I thought you were dead," and then Moff Gideon goes, "Well, didn't you notice?" And he twirls his mustache.
Oh my gosh! No way! No way! Now you're gonna give me nightmares that that's gonna.
Yeah,
happen.
I want him back just for that scene now.
Jeez. Okay. All right. Let's move on here because we had.
Man, or like he'll have the mustache on and then he'll take it off and like it was a clone all along.
Oh, it's like a peel away.
Yeah, exactly.
The other flip side to it is that maybe they were just justifying like Dr. Pershing's like actual presence earlier on in the season, because other than that one episode, we didn't really hear anything from him. So
that's a great point, because we didn't hear any like the whole Dr. Pershing thing ended on such a weird note. Like, you know, he was being electrocuted. Wow. He was being like, you know,
they wiped his mind, and I think so that woman was still working with Gideon. So Pershing probably knew that there were clones of Gideon, and that's why they wanted to wipe his mind. I think that's why. But why we needed to see that in the first place doesn't really make any sense.
But he said to the Shadow Council that Dr. Pershing was what did he say about him? He was like did he say something like that he was back in their custody, or that he was in the custody of the New Republic or something, but the research was like safe or whatever. He said something in the second last episode, which kind of gave me the idea that, I don't know, the way he said it seemed like he wasn't too worried about it, which I guess kind of points towards the idea that maybe whatever research he did have kind of paid off with these clones that would have been the first batch, which Din Djarin all killed, which would have likely been successful. And I don't know. I kind of wonder, like, maybe is it still a possibility that this character could come back because of the whole Pershing plot line? You know, maybe there's something more going on here that we just don't know about. But
do you think he'll come back with a wiped mind?
Well, I think it might be what do you call it? It's just like an amnesia state of mind where, like, he's not going to be a vegetable, but he's going to probably not remember that he was captured by the New Republic, that he was in the amnesty program. You know, maybe
she turned it up pretty strong. I think he might not remember his name or, you know, where he's from or anything either.
Yeah, that's also a strong possibility. Maybe she was doing it for the protection of the research that didn't get into the hands of the New Republic. But I like to think that maybe she was trying to reset him to the point where maybe his mind was wiped to a certain extent, right? And that he thinks he's still in the service of the Empire, which would to me kind of sounds more like an actual Imperial plot line, something that they would do, is just to, you know, because he's an asset to them, right? So I don't know. I guess we'll find out maybe in another show, maybe like Rangers of the New Republic. But yeah, we had the fight scene between Grogu and the Praetorian Guards. I know we talked a little bit about that, but the fight scene between Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon, and you know, the destruction of the Darksaber. I mean,
I was so surprised by that.
Very surprised by that. Yeah, I thought that was a little strange. You know, that we have to say goodbye to this weapon, and I really hope they don't pull a Rise of Skywalker and bring it back and it's all duct taped up with leather. Like, I really hope they just leave it.
It's going to be Grogu's first lightsaber. He's going to rebuild it.
Man, that's going to look so weird. It's as big as he is. Like, are you kidding me?
It's going to be shortened. It'll be a short miniature version, like Yoda's saber.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, no, I hope they don't bring it back, but it was a surprise, and I think it was a nice surprise, because I feel like the surprises that we did get with the whole reveal of his evil plans were just a little underwhelming for me. So it was kind of nice to get some kind of surprise that was like a little shocking. No deaths of any main characters in this episode, but other than Gideon, of course. But yeah, I think like it was cool to see like such a legendary weapon. Like this is the oldest lightsaber, in existence at the moment, from what we have in canon so far. And to see that kind of just get crumpled and wasted by Gideon, it was like, whoa, it's a lot to take in. But yeah, did anyone here have any thoughts on that? Saying goodbye to the Darksaber.
I was wondering what kind of effect that's going to have on Bo-Katan leading the Mandalorians, because she doesn't have the Darksaber anymore. Like, she's theoretically proven herself, but I know the ancient Mandalorian ways might see that as like a loss of leadership.
Maybe someone shares my thoughts on that. Perhaps it's a good thing that it's gone, because it is the merging of 2 or 3 different types of Mandalorian beliefs, like traditions, in the sense that like some people choose to always have their helmet on and others choose not to. And the group that chooses to have their helmets on, like they look at the Darksaber as the symbol of leadership. So maybe it's a good thing that it's gone, because like they're merging all of this together. Perhaps it's just one less thing to kind of get in the way of adopting a new leader that may not need to take on that role by just killing the other leader in combat, right? Maybe it's just a kind of like a peaceful way to pass the torch backwards to kind of the Clone Wars days, where Satine, Duchess of Mandalore, part of the royal family, it would just get passed along kind of like a crown, a natural position that just gets passed down the line, right?
That wasn't the original Mandalorian way, though. Before that was the strongest rule.
No, that's what I'm saying, though, is that even though strongest rule is the old one, like this is the merging of 2 cultures. Like we're merging the tradition with the modern culture, right? So like maybe what I'm saying is like it's a good thing that it's gone, because like the Darksaber was like the thing of the old traditions that kind of kept them a warring culture for leadership, right? Like it was like even in 3 episodes ago, the Bryce Dallas Howard episode, like we saw Axe Woves just kind of bloodthirsty going after Bo-Katan, and in the final episode, like he's very much a strong ally, but it's like in that one episode, it was like, whoa, like they're really trying to kill each other right now. And Bo-Katan spares his life, but like she could have killed him, and he probably would have probably done the same, like if it meant that he gets the Darksaber, right? So like, is it a good thing that it's gone? If they're going back to this state of leadership, that like someone just kind of takes that role. I don't know, Kirk, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a benefit for the Mandalorians. I think all these years they've been fighting over like really bad leaders who have just been able to, muscle their way through to get the Darksaber. I think if that had any type of realistic thing in real life, like imagine like the prime minister of a country was someone that was able to win a fight and get the Darksaber, like you're probably not going to have the best leader. And maybe that's why the Mandalorians have been so disjointed over the period right down till the early days of the Clone Wars, I guess. So I think for the Mandalorians, it's good that it's gone. Then again, there could be a little bit of duct tape that could fix it, so it's not technically completely gone. So they could bring it back if they really wanted to, but I think it is trying to imply that with the Forge being lit again, Mandalorians taking over Mandalore for another time after everything that's happened, I think it's more of like a symbolic transition period marker, I guess.
Yeah, I would definitely consider that to be more symbolic than anything as well, because they might have it as like a centerpiece in like their palace or whatever, like when they settle back onto the planet, it's like, oh, here's the broken Darksaber, this is like how it destroyed our culture, and we've kind of rebuilt like as a more civil population rather than just barbarian warriors trying to kill everyone for pride and stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree. It becomes less of a Game of Thrones kind of style of way of claiming leadership rather than anything else, right? Like we witnessed those events before multiple times. I mean, like we had the whole Maul versus Pre Vizsla scene, and it's literally bound by honor and the Darksaber that Maul was able to claim their planet and cause an incredible amount of chaos. So I feel like it is there. Like, I think you're right. Like, it's a symbol that, like, that life is gone. Like, even though the warrior way is not gone, I think it's just a matter of saying goodbye to aspects of that tradition that just didn't work, which brought upon the destruction of their culture multiple times. And Bo-Katan also says in the episode, like, you know, we're Mandalorians are stronger together, and like they have that kind of like scene where they kind of come together and do their thing. But yeah, I don't know, Shawna, what do you think of this?
No, I agree. I definitely think that symbolically it's better that it's not there, because like it's always been like about warring factions, like Mandalore against Mandalorian, and like we see in the Clone Wars is with like Bo's sister Satine, like she tries to unify her people, but like Mandalore's not ready for that yet. And I think now, after all these years, Bo's kind of seeing what her sister was trying to achieve, and is in a position to be able to follow along that line, but also to take it from the side that she used to see as well, because she was on the outside looking in before too.
Right.
It's true. It does really complete her story arc, where she started with Death Watch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, two very different kind of ways of approaching leadership of their planet, and neither of them quite work on their own. Right? They both got their own advantages. Like Satine's rule didn't work because like her pacifist rule just left Mandalore vulnerable to corruption and invasion, and Bo-Katan's way didn't work either, because their evil, twisted plans with Death Watch to try and kind of side with certain allies, which ended up being villains, that didn't pay off, you know. And then the Pre Vizsla ended up biting the dust, and then she kind of went on her own way to do her thing with the Night Owls, but she didn't have any power to take back the planet at that point. So, you know, she's got to make friends with Kenobi, and it's like, dang, like everyone kind of approaching it from their own perspective, like with their own solid way of doing it, like just didn't really quite make any sense for anybody. It didn't work. So I think like this new society, this new rulership that we're seeing on Mandalore is gonna really kind of make it stronger, because they're using the best of both worlds in a way. And yeah, I like the idea that they're gonna keep that Darksaber around just as a relic, you know, broken and destroyed and shattered, and just kind of like as
like
a,
Lord
as
of the Rings.
Yeah, as a symbol, right? Like as like
Andril, Flame of the West.
Exactly like Andril, right? Like just have it on a
it has
statue.
been reforged.
Yeah, just like, I don't know, maybe one day we'll have that moment where it does need to be reforged, and maybe it'll be a moment that pays off with the idea of rebuilding it. But I don't want to see it just come back. I don't want to have Bo-Katan just, now she's got it on her belt again in season 4 and it's been fixed, right? I don't want that to happen. Okay, so
just one more thing. I do like the plot of that, but like with like Mandalore being like rebuilt and stuff, but it is called Star Wars, so it can't be peaceful for too long.
Yeah, no,
the world will just be somewhere else.
Yeah, very. That's a good point. There's been a lot of theories over the last couple of weeks that the Armorer was in fact a traitor, and in this episode, of course, that was not the case. In fact, she was just a poor victim of us theorizing about who could the traitor possibly be. And I was trying to remember who was super in the boat of like, this person is 100% got to be the one who, like, you know, let Moff Gideon know that they're on the planet and whatever else. It's never really been made clear that it was her. It just kind of, but she was like, you know, at the head of the Mandalorians, you know, flying in to kind of die for their planet again. So I just assume it wasn't her. But did anyone have any follow-up thoughts, you know, as far as that goes? I mean, I don't know, Kirk, I forget your opinion on the Armorer being a traitor. I think, were you a bit suspicious? I forget.
I was a little bit suspicious, and like pretty much every single other rumor for this episode, none of them turned out to be true. So there we go.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Wait, wasn't it called The Spies?
Yeah,
it was called The Spies. So it made no sense, because it was who was the spy in the end? It was just
actually hold on. I have a bit of a thing, like, because everyone was like wasn't sure because like there was that like Alaya, right? That was her name. Like she was like, oh, she's a spy, like in the New Republic, like she's working with Gideon, and everyone's like, oh, who's the other one, right? And it was the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I read this thing somewhere, and it was like there's a meaning of like it's like in the Bible or something. There's spies in the Bible that went down to like scout out a new place. And that might be what it meant, was that the Mandalorians scout team goes down to like try and find, right?
Yeah.
So it might not be 2 spies, it might be a pack of spies, meaning all the Mandalorians going back to Mandalore.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great point. I actually never thought about it from that angle before.
Yeah.
Many Bothan spies are lost finding out about Mandalore.
Right.
Yeah, that wasn't my finding. I just kind of happened to stumble upon it. So, but it makes sense, right?
Yeah, I guess because it's like a story of the Promised Land, right? And like retaking their home, or that totally makes sense. Actually, that's a great point. So maybe the spies actually are the Mandalorians rather than the villains. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
That being said, the armor was real suspicious last episode, so it felt like it was on the table.
Yes, it was for sure, I think. But I think she sort of proved that she was on the good team this episode, because she was like pretty epic with her fighting with her hammer and all that.
Yeah,
she had a big flame
again with the hammer.
Yeah.
Every time.
The tool and weapon of choice.
Yeah. And also, in regards to the sky battle, I think this episode really confirmed the theories that like these stormtroopers are Beskar enhanced. And I forget who said it last week. I don't know if it was you, Kirk, but like it might be a Beskar alloy that's not just as authentic as if a Mandalorian would have made it to be. So it's like got Beskar enhancements, but it's not quite the same level of durability.
Right. And then the start of this episode was shots being ricocheted off their torsos.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
when they were fighting, you can see Mando was specifically aiming for the joints with both his blade and the blaster.
Yeah. And I think it was very cool. So these basically are sort of like the Imperial super commandos that we saw in Star Wars Rebels, except it's not Mandalorians in the suit. I would imagine it's probably just either regular stormtroopers or maybe even we never got the reveal, but like I know I had a suspicion about maybe it is Moff Gideon's clones in those suits. Maybe that was his whole idea. Maybe those suits were supposed to be eventually made for him, right?
Well, he does make that like comment about making the suit better. He put him in it,
right?
And then that could also like be like down that line that you're going there.
Yeah,
that was his.
I feel like
plan.
that also that line, it really cracked me up because as we know, like what you were saying, Kirk, about like the he's got the biggest ego ever, right? I can't wait to get a day in which like I get the same jacket as somebody and then I say, yeah, but this jacket's better because I'm in it. You know what I mean? Like it's just like the most egotistical comment ever. Like, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny.
My grand theory now is that because Moff Gideon has been spending way too much time around Beskar, he's sniffed a little bit too much Beskar.
The fumes.
And, He's gone a little bit loopy, and because the Empire doesn't really care about OH&S and safety and stuff, he's definitely whiffed a bit too much fumes back in his day, so he's gone a bit loopy.
Yeah.
He must have been, he was forging all that Beskar without protection.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, didn't wear his mask. Yeah. Beskar fumes. Yeah, maybe that's why they always keep their helmets on. All right, yeah. So I think I don't know. Does anyone have anything else to bring up there? Maybe Blake, you got any notes?
I'm sure there's stuff. I need to quickly peruse through here.
Right.
I think this is the end of what we think The Mandalorian is for now. They'll focus on Ahsoka plus the other content that's coming out. I think at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, I was really kind of content with the show. I was like, this is the perfect ending. I kind of want it to all stop here. But then again, you always want more Star Wars. But it definitely seemed like there is potential for more stuff to come. The story isn't finished, but it definitely seemed like a very safe episode, a safe finish. Like you're almost playing a video game, and everyone had it on like the easiest mode, I guess. And I think there's still room for stuff in the end. But yeah, am I happy with the end result? Yeah, I guess so. But it would have been interesting to go and see some other things, but can't have everything, I guess.
Yeah, actually, that did get me thinking, Billy, or get me thinking there, Kirk. It does make me wonder, like, let's say that season 2, like, was like the finale for our story with Grogu and Din Djarin. How do we feel about that being the ending versus season 3 being the end? Because
I have to say, I honestly still wish that it ended at season 2. Like that was.
I kind of feel that way too, to be honest.
And I think that really ties in with what we were saying earlier. Like it's going to take a good 50, 100-year time jump for Grogu to be of any more interesting of a character compared to just waddling around and being cute and stuff. Like it's been really nice the first 3 seasons, and obviously it's brought on a lot of new Star Wars fans, and he's an adorable character. But from like a writer's perspective, you can only really do so much with a character that's supposed to have a lifespan of over 1,000 years, I guess. Like he's in his toddler stages. It's like trying to film a baby just for like, you know, the first few years of its life. So I think, yeah, I think they need to move on and move into some different stories, I guess.
I think like you know that's a good point. I got to throw a curveball in there though, because if they did end it with season 2, we did have the Book of Boba Fett episodes where, you know, he's recovered from Luke's care and back in the hands of Mando again, and the story kind of just continued for them, right? So because I feel like the natural stopping point for season 2 would have been Grogu becomes part of Luke's academy, and Mando kind of carries on as a bounty hunter, as we've seen, and that natural progression carried through with the Book of Boba Fett episode where he was just doing that, right? Like he was pulling bounties with the Darksaber. But the way that whole arc kind of resolves, it just kind of set it up for season 3. So the way that season 3 now ends, I feel like maybe, I don't know, like I kind of agree with you, but Book of Boba threw the curveball in there.
I should have honestly
That's the thing.
say that. Oh, sorry, Blake, go for it.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was just going to say that they should have saved those episodes of Book of Boba Fett for episode 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian season 3, but a 10-year time jump or something, and then had Mando reunite with Luke and Grogu throughout the season in season 3. But that's changing a lot, obviously.
Yeah. And which to me, that's what I thought it was originally going in. What if season 2 was the planned ending?
100%.
Yeah, I can see that.
Be the case, yeah.
I mean, like I'm a big fan of like whatever is in the interest of the story, right? Like what's the best for the story, what's the best for the saga. Of course, Disney doesn't think that way, but Lucasfilm does, right? And at the end of the day, who owns Lucasfilm? So
yeah.
You know, it's just like as long as they're making money, I feel like maybe Disney's gonna stay out of it. But of course, things are changing these days, and you know, we've seen a slowdown from Bob Iger's kind of came out and say like, hey, we're gonna be slowing the pace down across the board, you know, with Marvel, with Star Wars. And that's why at Celebration, like it was cool. It was great to see the announcement of 3 new movies. Like I don't think anyone expected 3, but I mean, to kind of not get an announcement for season 4 for Mandalorian, like that was a little surprising. We already knew Ahsoka was on the way, and really there was not a whole lot else. Like it was just the 3 movies, and that was it, right? So not crazy like what like the Disney convention or the D22 or D23, whatever it was, where Kathleen Kennedy announced like 12 different projects, including a few that a number of them which we haven't seen anything from yet. I mean, Rogue Squadron, the movie, the Patty Jenkins film, we've had nothing from that. The animated droid story with R2 and C3PO, that's not a thing yet. Neither is the Lando TV series that we're supposed to get on Disney Plus with Donald Glover. No news on that either. So like there's a whole bunch of things that they announced so far in advance, and I feel like now they're just kind of playing it closer to the chest. So maybe in a year or two, maybe we'll get a season 4 announcement. But I mean, in the meantime, like what does everybody feel like with these characters showing up in other shows? Like, would you want to see them in the New Republic movie that Dave Filoni's doing? Would you want to see them pop up in Ahsoka? Would you want to see them, in some other manner? Would you read a Mandalorian novel, which kind of bridges the gap between a future season 4 that takes place years down the road? Like, what's everyone's take on that?
It's interesting.
I don't know. Well, because we know from the Ahsoka trailer that there's going to be a lot of Rebels characters in it, right? Yeah. And that everyone's like, but I like that. I feel like that's what Star Wars fans want to see. It's like, oh yeah, there's these characters in this show that I used to watch, and now they're in this show, and it's like a cool, like that's fun, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that possibly could be the case with Mando, but I think they definitely ended season 3 where they didn't leave any big plot lines. They didn't leave any loose ends. They could end it and never have a season 4.
Right. And
I think that's probably the best thing to do, because like, how many shows do you want going at the same time anyway, right? There has to be a limit to that. Right. I think they've got to move on and tell different stories.
I agree.
So just shelve them for now.
Yeah.
All right, let's do some Pablo points or poodoos. We totally forgot about this until after recording was over. So here we go. Let's start off with you, Shawna.
So a really fun episode. And I think it was a great way to end off the season. So I'm going to give the finale a 2 Pablo points. And for overall, the whole season, I'm going to give 1 Pablo point. Just because there were a few episodes where kind of some things were a little weird. But other than that, I really enjoyed this season overall.
All right. 2 for the finale, 1 for the season. That's not too bad. I think I would agree with that. I think 2 for the finale, that's the same for me. For the overall season, I would say 1.5 Pablo points. I think we may revisit that idea in the future, and maybe Blake and I will give do some sort of spiel about the season 3 as a whole. Maybe we can award that a Pablo point. I'd be interested to compare my 1.5 Pablo point score for the season with an actual average of what I gave per episode. That would make more sense. But all right, Kirk, you are up, sir. Let's hear from you. What did you think of this?
Okay, Kirk here back again with my final thoughts and review of Mandalorian Season 3 and the last episode of Season 3. I'll have to give the last episode 2 Pablo points. It wasn't the best season finale, but it was still really enjoyable. I think the best one is still reserved for the final episode of Season 2 with Luke Skywalker and the Return. But yeah, it was still a good finale, but a little bit left to be desired for. But I really think that mainly is because of the rest of the season. I'd give the whole season a 1.5 Pablo points, just because I felt like there was a few wasted episodes that would have been good in a 16-episode season. But yeah, there definitely was a few filler episodes in there that I think didn't really advance the story in what was a short season. And I think the other 2 seasons were definitely more of my favorites. So there you go. 1.5 Pablo points for season 3 and probably 2 points for the final episode.
Awesome. All right. That's exactly what my thoughts were too.
So really fun episode.
Oh, that's a repeat there. And we got one final recording from Nick, and Blake will have his input maybe down the road in the next episode. So let's hear from you, Nick.
I'm going to give this episode 2.4 Pablo points. I really enjoyed it, especially with the fight scenes, and in particular the jetpack scenes. I thought those were really well done. I thought it was a good episode to kind of, if they aren't going to make a season 4, I thought it was a good episode to cap off the whole series. They kind of finished it quite nicely with Mando and Grogu just chilling out on Navarro. My only gripe is that they sort of spent the whole series talking up or building up this Moff Gideon character, and then like kind of slowly revealing his plans throughout the whole series, and then he just dies and it's all over in one episode. But yeah, that's my rating, 2.4.
All right, 2.4, and perhaps down the road we'll hear about his full review for season 3. But that's it for the finale. And yeah, let's get back to the episode. I'd be happy with that, to be honest. As you know, it's sad. It's always sad to say goodbye to a show that you love. But you know, I want, it's Star Wars, right? Like, there's so many expanding stories in different eras. Like right now, they're making 5 different eras all at the same time. I mean, we have the Dawn of the Jedi era that was announced with James Mangold's movie. They're building out the High Republic with the novels and the comics, and that's prequels as well. And then we have the I forget the name of the era, the Imperial, the Rise of the Empire, with the Bad Batch getting a 3rd season. And then we have the New Republic era being expanded with Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, and High Republic era is getting the Acolyte. And then, of course, there's the new Jedi Order movie with Rey coming back, and that's going to be a thing as well. So it's like all of these different eras that are kind of paralleled, you know, production going on all at the same time. Like, you're right. Like, is there room for a 4th season of Mandalorian when there's yet so many other characters that I would love to see in live action
and
in their own
honestly, it's not hard for like us and probably much better listeners who are like really involved in Star Wars and already have a good grasp of the timeline. But if you're just some average Joe who just, you know, likes to watch Star Wars when it comes on and when the movie hits the theaters, and this stuff's just coming out like super scattered timeline wise, it's got to get really confusing.
Yeah. I think that was definitely something we talked about and agreed on when Disney Plus announced some of these shows to begin with. You know, I remember like the times in which Disney Plus wasn't a thing. These shows weren't even in the realm of possibilities yet. And other than the animated shows, right? And the biggest question was like, do you show people chronologically anymore with Rogue One and Solo being in the mix? You know, like if you were to take some through the whole saga, all the movies, like, do you toss those in the mix? Is how intimately involved Rogue One is with backing up to A New Hope. Like, that's a question that's worth approaching, right? And that's just one movie. Like, now how do you do it?
And this is
I think what they should do, like Disney Plus and a lot of the other streaming services, like they don't take advantage of the fact that they just display the content and that's it. They should have like a little badge or icon on there we can click on, and then you can browse the timeline and see where the show that you're currently looking at watching, where it fits in the timeline and stuff. If you like, there's an opportunity to do that. I think that would be really
just organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that's helpful for like just. Oh, sorry. I was just saying, I think that's even helpful for people like us who know the timeline, because I know I had a couple moments going from between Andor and then The Mandalorian where I was like, wait, I have to think about when these are taking place. And even The Bad Batch too. It's like,
yeah, it's always
just
kind
like
of
the episode title. When you click on the episode, there should be like a little badge, and you click on it, and then it opens up like a menu or something where, you know, in the recent Star Wars Celebration, how they showed that whole timeline of the different eras from the High Republic all the way up to the New Jedi Order or something.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they should have a really interesting little thing of where everything fits in, and that might make it easier. But
Yeah.
it was a lot.
Start with the whole timeline list and then like zoom in to like where that show is, sort of idea.
Or like you click on each show. You click on the era and then it expands a chronological playlist or something like that, right? I think that's what you're going on.
Yeah,
Kirk. Yeah.
I think they kind of have that now with the helmets. It's just nobody really notices because each show has different helmets for its correct timeline.
Yeah, but you can't. It's not an interactive thing.
so
That's just like
subtle.
when you start playing an episode. That's just kind of what shows up. But like
the
on
helmets and the intro, right?
on the Disney Plus like UI, right? Because like first you click the Star Wars badge, and then you get taken to a page worth of Star Wars stuff. And like if you scroll down just far enough, there is a Star Wars timeline order like down there, but it's basically just a playlist, and you just see badges of all the shows. There's no like cool timeline like structure like what you were saying, Kirk, like how they presented it on the stage at Celebration. Like that would be cool. Like maybe they can make a dedicated Star Wars streaming app. You just log in with your same Disney Plus credentials, but it's like geared for Star Wars fans, you know? Like that would be sweet. So
that would be cool. There's a row called Star Wars in Timeline Order.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, you just kind of see all the shows and movies like in order, but there's no like interesting way to see like, you know, the eras that they're all kind of separated by, unless you kind of have them memorized already. But
you might still run into I guess you'd have to show the show and the timeline like at the same time. Because if you clicked on the timeline to find the show, a lot of people wouldn't be able to find the show.
Right.
Yeah. Like, for example, imagine like you click on, let's say, the last episode of the Clone Wars season 7. You click on the Shattered episode or when Order 66 happened, and there's like a little badge there. It's like, see where this fits on the timeline, and you can click it, and then like it takes you to the interactive point, and the episode is literally put exactly where it is on the timeline. That would require a lot of work, but like, I don't know.
That'd be insanely cool.
I still think because
Disney has the resources.
Yeah, the Disney does have the resources. You're right. Like they could do it if they wanted to. They're just I don't know, lazy. Maybe they just don't.
I don't know. It might just be me, but I feel like the Disney Plus user interface is still so bad.
Oh yeah,
like it's worse than Netflix by a lot, and they've just never changed how it is. Like I don't know if there's a way to do this. You can tell me if there is, but like if you go on a show and you click resume, like you can go continue watching. You it just starts you right there, and there's no way to go to like the episodes.
Yeah,
because you're like, I want to continue watching, but I want to watch the last one first. You can't do that. You have to go to the Star Wars tab and then find the show on its own, and then go to the individual episode. Whereas in Netflix, you can always switch between the episodes right there.
Right. Yeah.
So,
that part's annoying.
It never offers if you want to like start it from the beginning, right?
Exactly.
No, it has that. It has to start from the beginning. But you can't change the episode.
Yeah, it doesn't have episode selection, and Netflix has always had that. And it's like, because like, I'm going to watch the new episode of Mandalorian, but I want to re-watch the last one first. You can't do that from the continue watching place. You have to go somewhere and like search or find the show on its own somewhere else, and then find the episode from there.
Right.
So, yeah, that part is just really annoying to me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe someone at Disney Plus hopefully comes up with a brilliant idea to satisfy Star Wars fans, and maybe we'll get change in the future. But
there has to be enough of an uproar about it on Reddit or something for them to change it. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, Marvel could also use one of those too. So.
Yeah,
they're two of their biggest money makers there. So
that's true. Yeah. I would love like a dedicated app that's kind of geared for Star Wars fans streaming. You know, you just use your Disney Plus credentials. You know, same like a passport. You just log into that app and boom, there you go. Like a whole fresh UI. Maybe it's even got links to like, like their Del Rey or the Marvel comic store to like, get those other stories that kind of take place between all these shows and movies, for people who are curious. Because I feel like if you're only catering to the Disney Plus crowd, a lot of people don't even know that some of these stories exist. Some of these stories are out there, and we talk about them on the podcast every now and again, if we're trying to kind of make sense of something or fill in the gaps. But yeah, it's like I think there's many more creative ideas that they could do to kind of make these shows so much more interactive, and interesting in that massive timeline that they're kind of expanding all at once. So, right. Well, I think that pretty much sums up Mandalorian.
We didn't talk about the most important part.
The Mythosaur?
No, the mouse droids.
The mouse droids.
Oh, the mouse droids. Yeah.
I like Nick's better than the Mythosaur.
I didn't know mouse droids had police lights on them.
I know. It's funny because they proved that they were, like, it's now fully canon that they are completely useless.
I love that.
They're for helping stormtroopers or whoever, like, navigate, right? Because Star Destroyers are so massive. That's
I guess here's the way that I look at. I've always kind of looked at them as like really budget version of probe droids, right? Like, you know how you get in Obi-Wan Kenobi, they got the little probes that kind of fly around the hallways and kind of keep surveillance. I feel like mouse droids are like that, but like the really crappy version, like the really.
Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. But didn't Jon Favreau say that they're launching the new show next year, like Mouse Droids, a Star Wars story. I swear that that was the thing coming.
My heart skipped a beat.
Well,
for a
I'm
second.
excited.
You're on a roll with giving me bad nightmares, Kirk.
We need a new animated series.
I want a whole season just to show what they do. You know, it'd be low budget as well. You didn't have to do much. That's another pitch.
No dialogue, nothing. Just squeaks and beeps, right? Yeah. No, that was a great little kind of like thing, I guess, to expand upon. You know, police lights on the mouse droids. That was kind of cool. It was kind of cool.
I thought it was funny that they started just bashing into the R4 unit or whatever, and he just flies away.
Yeah. He didn't even show up with like better reinforcements. He just got all his mouse droid friends to try and help him.
That's right. Strength in numbers.
I saw one fly off the edge too when he took off.
He did.
He didn't even fly off. He just when R4 or when R5 like shot up, he just backed up and he just backed himself up off the cliff.
Yeah.
Like, he just killed himself. He wasn't even knocked off.
They didn't even give him reversing sensors. Like that's how low budget.
Oh man, it's too good. No, you're right though, Nick. The Mythosaur showed up. Totally forgot about that. It was a very brief appearance. Grogu kind of connected with that creature down there at the bottom of the living waters, and you know, it's like the unspoken thing. It's like, yeah, there's someone else that acknowledges that's down there. So it's not just all of us kind of imagining maybe it was in Bo-Katan's head. It's actually alive. So yeah, that was a very cool kind of little confirmation that they had there. But yeah, does anyone have any deeper thoughts of like maybe this Mythosaur is going to show up again, or do you think that maybe it's just kind of like, yeah, it's just one of those things, you know?
I don't know why it didn't show up already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we thought it was the last episode when that thing came out of the ground. Like we all thought, like, oh, maybe this is it, and then it ended up being just like a big ugly lizard guy.
Yeah, I was really expecting Bo-Katan to ride it, like we saw Boba Fett ride on the Rancor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might have been too much for the episode.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they're just planting seeds.
I really didn't think Boba Fett would show up this week, but I was kind of surprised that became a topic of conversation. That like, there's people posting polls on Twitter going like, do you think Boba Fett's going to show up in the finale? And I thought to myself, like, why? Like, why would he show up? Like there's no context for him showing up at all so far.
I guess just because all Mandalorians together are trying to take back Mandalore.
I guess so. Yeah, I don't know.
But he like technically isn't even Mandalorian at this point.
Right. Yeah, he's technically not, and he's like comes from Mandalorian roots, I guess, with his chain code, built into the armor, and it was like his Django's caretaker or something was Mandalorian, but yeah, like they've kind of not only do they not follow the way, but like they have no personal connection to Mandalore at all. So yeah, it is kind of like one of those things. Like, why would he show up? maybe to help Din Djarin when Din Djarin helped him. I guess like that kind of makes sense. But like, they had no previous communication, so to me it just didn't make any sense at all. But since we're talking about Boba Fett, we'll just wrap up with one final message from him before we hit the outro.
Ruled with fear. You also did not listen to Star Wars Escape Pod. If you know what's good for you, tune in, subscribe, share this show with a partner in crime, and leave a good review.
Yeah, that's right. Leave a good review. Blake, any last words?
Yeah, I was just poking around the artwork at the end of the show here, and I don't know. It looks like there apparently at one point was a scene where Din Djarin flew out of the crashing Star Destroyer in a TIE fighter.
Whoa!
Thought that was kind of neat. I just posted some pictures in the guest chat there if you want to take a look. But it was always neat looking at the artwork afterwards, just to see alternate plot lines, I guess, or stuff that was cut.
Yeah, it's always cool seeing kind of what could have been. Yeah. Kirk, you got any last minute things?
Well, no, I think that's it from me for this season. I'm looking forward to Ahsoka. I think more so than I was this season, just because I thought season 2 of Mando was perfect. So it'll be exciting to see what comes next.
Awesome. Nick, any last minute things?
I don't know. I think we pretty much covered everything. Yeah, I think I'm I think it was a good show overall, and I think this is probably where it ends, at least with the name of the show. Din Djarin might show up with Grogu or whatever in some other shows, but I really don't think there's going to be season 4, and I'm excited for the next shows.
Awesome. Shawna, any last comments?
Yeah, just in that last scene there with the the youngling becoming an apprentice or whatever. I did notice how they don't mention like not taking off the helmet anymore. So that's going to be a progressive thing. And then I just feel like Mando and Grogu are going to make an appearance in Ahsoka now that they have that little bit of an established connection there. So we'll see if that happens, but I won't be surprised if a season 4 also does not happen.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Yeah, I kind of wonder about that. Like when the next time is that we're gonna possibly see these people, these characters again. Yeah, Blake. I mean, we got what's next on the podcast, buddy? I mean, we got this book,
some book reviews.
Yeah, we keep talking about this book review that we've been
the ever elusive book review.
The ever elusive. Yeah, we started reading it like a year ago.
I promise it's tomorrow. Tomorrow, you never actually hit tomorrow because it's always a day ahead.
Yeah, no. All right, well, cool.
We got some games coming out here too.
Oh yeah,
new Jedi Fallen Order.
Jedi Survivor.
About that.
Yeah, Jedi Survivor. Right. Like 4 or 5 days away.
Jedi
now.
Fallen Survivor.
Fallen Survivor. Fallen Order Survivor. Yeah, we'll be talking about that. We'll give like an initial kind of our thoughts kind of thing right off the bat, and then do a full review with spoilers kind of maybe a month or two away, just to kind of give people time to play it, because Cameron Monaghan was very strict on stage at Celebration. He's like, do not spoil the ending for people. So we'll give everybody a chance to play it before we kind of dive right in with the spoiler bell. But everybody, it was great having you all on so much, and thank you, Nick, thank you, Shawna, thank you, Kirk, and thank you, Blake.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a good time. We'll see everyone out there. Keep flying.
The famous line. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, for listening to Star Wars Escape Pod. We appreciate you so much checking out our Star Wars podcast. And you can reach us at multiple different platforms. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram with the handle at SW Escape Podcast. You can subscribe on the YouTube channel, and you can find us on any podcasting platform in the galaxy. Send us an email at swescapepodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts in the form of a voice memo or related, what you thought of Season 3 of The Mandalorian. And we'll see you next week on the show. May the Force be with you.